Most parents agree that kids seem to grow up too quickly, but these days more and more kids really are growing up too fast. Nearly half of African American girls start showing signs of puberty at 8 years old. Others are entering puberty even younger, like the little girl you're about to meet. Skyla Jones is an energetic 5-year-old who loves to play. But last year, her mother, Melissa, noticed Skyla was tired all the time, smelled of body odor, and had blood in her urine.
I didn't know what was going on. I just went ahead and thought that she had a kidney infection. And we did antibiotics, and still it didn't clear it up.
She was eventually sent to Dr. Andrew Muir, a pediatric endocrinologist who knew exactly what was going on. Skyla was getting her period and was experiencing other unmistakable signs of puberty.
That's what he told me that it was, that she was having a menstrual cycle and that it was lactating. I was really freaked out.
And some studies suggest this bizarre trend of early sexual development is real. By age 8, almost half of African American girls and 15% of Caucasian girls start developing breasts and other characteristics of puberty.
The switch that normally gets turned on for pubertal development gets turned on too early.
Until recently, most doctors didn't expect to see these signs until age 10.
It can have many causes. Some of them are related to genetics, and some of them are related to environmental factors, and some we just don't know why it happens.
For Skyla, it was a thyroid problem causing her symptoms. And while Skyla was too young to really understand what was happening, Melissa worried that other kids might.
I was worried that the kids would make fun of her because, kids are cruel.
But since Skyla started treatment for her thyroid problem, all her symptoms have gone away. And Dr. Muir expects her next experience with puberty to be at a more reasonable age. And now we're joined by Dr. Susan Manzi from the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. Good to see you, Susan.
Thank you for having me.
Why do we seem to be seeing this more and more? Why is this happening?
Well, it's a good question, and I think if you step back, and I think it's important for parents to understand what puberty is. It's a very natural transition from childhood to adulthood, not one event, series of events that are physical changes, hormonal changes, and they're very natural. And when you think about why are we seeing earlier, you have to say what's normal? What is really the normal age? And it's harder to define than you would think, because what we're finding is that over the past century, we're seeing that children are going into puberty earlier. And in part, it's because our nutrition is better, which is good.
Right.
But in part, it's also this epidemic of obesity, which is not as good because that can influence hormonal levels.
You say it's natural, of course it is, and it's a transition, but it's one thing if you're 5-year-old, and going through it, and at the more reasonable age of 10 or 11. As a parent, you must think, my goodness, what's my child going through?
Exactly, and you're right. I mean, there are, even though it's hard to define when is normal puberty, generally it's on average 10 years for girls, 9 to 10 for girls. Keeping in mind, though, as they mentioned, that African American girls are almost 1 to 2 years younger than that. And boys, it's usually a little later, about 11 years of age. But when you talk about average age of puberty, you have to remember there's a range there.
Right.
So there's a range where it's still perfectly normal.
And it's treatable.
It's treatable, and I think the things that are important is are recognizing the signs of puberty and recognizing when you need to go and seek help. So the general signs of puberty in girls, the first thing is breast development, later followed by the appearance of pubic hair, then body odor, and then the menstrual period. And in boys, it's usually the testicles become larger, the penis will get larger, the pubic hair, body odor, and then the deepening of the voice, which we all associate. But this is over a period of time.
And do we see early puberty as much in boys? Because we're seeing it in girls, but do you see it as much in boys?
It's not as common in boys. It's much more common in girls. And generally, though, if it does occur in boys, it's usually more concerning and often related to a medical condition that can be treated. And I think also you have to point out it's not as recognizable in boys because the changes that we're talking about, parents are not going to be able to recognize that as easily.
If you know that your child is something's wrong, and it could be possible early puberty, what should you do as a parent? I know you said the first thing, don't panic. That's the one thing you don't do, but what should you do?
Well, I think first you have to say, how old is my child and how quickly are they going through these changes? So if you notice any of these changes that we described, under the age of 8 in a girl or under the age of 9 in a boy, you ought to have them evaluated by your pediatrician. Because what's very important is, and obviously the younger they are, the more concerning it is. So if they're 7, you know, that's sort of on the borderline. If they're 4, like we hear here, that's much more concerning.
And is there anything as a parent you can do to prevent it from happening early on?
Well, you know, there's all this scare out there about what they're eating and hormones in food and the products and cosmetics and creams. And the fact is that the evidence is not convincing at all that what you feed your children or any of the food they have influences early onset puberty. However, having said that, there are very good cases of obvious exposures. So fathers that are using testosterone creams or estrogen creams that they can expose their children to, and it's important to know that those creams can be absorbed through the skin, so that if you're using them and you have contact with your children, they can get those exposures. So you should keep those products away from your children.
Definitely something to think about.